When Barron Trump walked into a small-town diner, he expected nothing more than a quiet meal on his road trip. But what he witnessed inside left him no choice but to take a stand. A family denied service, a manager firm on a discriminatory policy, and a decision that would spark a powerful lesson in justice. What Barron did next not only challenged prejudice, but left an entire town and the nation talking. The restaurant was cozy, with wooden tables neatly arranged under dim lights and a faint aroma of freshly brewed coffee lingering in the air. Barron sat near the window, his seat offering a view of both the bustling street outside and the quiet rhythm of the diner. He watched as waitstaff weaved between tables, balancing trays and chatting with customers. It was a peaceful, unassuming moment until the door swung open. A black family entered, their smiles warm and welcoming. The father, dressed in a crisp button-up shirt, politely approached the host stand, asking for a table for 4. The mother stood beside him, gently holding the hands of their 2 children, who looked around with excitement. It was a simple request, one that should have been routine, but Barron noticed something shift in the room. The waitress at the host stand hesitated, glancing nervously at her colleagues. She leaned toward one of them and whispered something. A moment later, a man who appeared to be the manager emerged from the back, his expression cold and calculating. "Can I help you?" the manager asked, his tone curt. "Yes," the father said, his voice steady but kind. "We'd like a table for 4. The manager crossed his arms, glancing at the seating area. "I'm sorry, but we're fully booked right now." Barron raised an eyebrow. From his vantage point, he could see at least 3 empty tables in clear view. He wasn't the only one who noticed. The father gestured toward one of them. "Are you sure? Those tables look free." The manager's posture stiffened. "Those are reserved," he said quickly. "And even if they weren't, it's our policy to seat guests at our discretion. I'm afraid I can't accommodate your request." The father's polite demeanor faltered slightly, but he kept his voice calm. "We're happy to wait if needed. We've driven a long way and just want to have a meal." "I'm sorry," the manager repeated, his tone hardening. "It's company policy." The mother's smile faded, replaced by a quiet resignation. She gently squeezed her children's hands and turned toward the door, whispering softly to them as they left. "Come on, let's go," she said, her voice heavy with disappointment. As they walked past Barron's table, he caught a glimpse of the children's faces, confusion mixed with sadness. "Why didn't they let us eat, Mommy?" one of them asked. The mother didn't respond, her lips pressed tightly together. Barron felt his chest tighten. He glanced around the room. The other diners seemed to avoid looking at the family, some pretending they hadn't noticed anything. The staff quickly returned to their routine, as if nothing had happened. But Barron couldn't ignore it. The exchange had left a bitter taste in his mouth, sharper than anything on the menu. He pushed back his chair, standing up with quiet determination. This wasn't just about one family being denied service. It was about a policy rooted in prejudice, and Barron wasn't about to let it go unanswered. Barron rose from his seat, his movements deliberate and calm, though his mind raced with frustration. The incident he had just witnessed wasn't something he could overlook. As he made his way toward the manager, the quiet hum of the restaurant began to shift. Diners noticed him standing, whispers rippling through the room as people recognized him. The manager, still near the host stand, looked up with a mixture of surprise and unease. "Excuse me," Barron began, his voice steady but commanding enough to silence the murmurs. "I couldn't help but notice what just happened. Can you explain why you turned that family away when there are clearly empty tables available?" The manager straightened his posture, his expression quickly hardening. "It's our policy," he said firmly. "We reserve the right to seat guests at our discretion. It's nothing personal." Barron tilted his head slightly, his gaze unwavering. "Nothing personal? Turning away a family who was polite and willing to wait doesn't seem like a good policy to me. What exactly is the discretion you're referring to?" The manager hesitated for a moment before doubling down. Look, it's not about them. It's about maintaining the kind of atmosphere our regular customers expect. We're allowed to make these decisions. Barron's calm demeanor didn't falter, but his voice carried more weight now. Decisions like these don't just hurt the people you turn away, they hurt your community, your business, and your country as a whole. Policies rooted in discrimination divide people. They undermine trust, weaken communities, and perpetuate inequality. That's not just bad for the individuals you exclude, it's bad for all of us. The manager's jaw tightened, his face reddening slightly. I'm sorry if you disagree, but this is how we run things. If you don't like it, you're welcome to eat elsewhere. Barron let the words hang in the air for a moment, scanning the room. The other diners, many of whom had been silently watching, exchanged uneasy glances but remained quiet. Finally, Barron nodded. You're right. I will. He reached into his pocket, placed a few bills on the counter to cover his drink, and turned toward the door. As he walked out, the tension in the room was palpable. Outside, he spotted the Black family near their car. The father was leaning against the door, looking tired, while the mother comforted the children, who were still asking questions. Barron approached them slowly, his expression one of genuine regret. I'm so sorry for what just happened in there, Barron said softly. You didn't deserve that. The father looked at him, surprised, before offering a small, weary smile. It's not the first time, he admitted. You'd think we'd get used to it by now, but it doesn't get easier, especially with kids. Barron crouched slightly to meet the children's eye level. What happened in there isn't about you, he said gently. Sometimes people make bad decisions that don't reflect who you are or what you deserve. The father's face softened. Thank you for saying that. It means a lot. Barron stood, shaking the father's hand firmly. This shouldn't keep happening. I don't know what I can do yet, but I promise I'll try. As the family got into their car, Barron stood in the parking lot, watching them drive away. Their words lingered in his mind, fueling a quiet determination. He wouldn't let this end here. That evening, as Barron sat in his hotel room, the events of the day played over in his mind. The frustration in the father's voice, the confusion on the children's faces, and the stubbornness of the restaurant manager, all of it lingered, fueling his resolve. He knew he had a platform, and it was time to use it. He opened his laptop and began typing out a post for his social media platforms. He kept it simple but impactful, describing the incident without exaggeration and letting the truth speak for itself. Today, I witnessed a family being turned away from a restaurant simply because of their race. The manager openly admitted it was their policy to decide who they serve, ignoring the visible pain and confusion they caused. This kind of discrimination doesn't just harm individuals, it reflects a deeper issue we need to address in our communities. Racism isn't always loud. Sometimes it hides behind excuses like company policy. It's on all of us to stand up against it in everyday spaces. He attached a picture of the empty tables he had seen in the restaurant, careful not to include the family to protect their privacy. Within minutes of posting, comments and shares began flooding in. What kind of restaurant still does this in 2025? Unbelievable. Thank you for speaking out, Barron. People need to see this. This is exactly why we need stronger anti-discrimination laws in businesses. The post quickly gained traction, shared by influencers, activists, and even local news outlets. By the next morning, it had gone viral, with thousands of people expressing outrage at the restaurant's behavior. Barron's words resonated with many, sparking a broader conversation about how subtle racism still permeates public spaces. The backlash for the restaurant was swift. Review platforms were inundated with comments calling out their discriminatory practices. Customers vowed to boycott the diner until meaningful changes were made. Local media picked up the story, pressuring the owner to address the growing public outcry. While Barron didn't revel in the restaurant's misfortune, he felt a glimmer of hope. The attention meant people were listening, but he knew the real challenge wasn't just about public outrage. It was about ensuring genuine change. The restaurant, now at the center of public backlash, found itself scrambling to control the damage. The once cozy diner had become a symbol of discrimination in the eyes of thousands online. Facing mounting pressure, the owner released a public apology on the restaurant's social media accounts. "We deeply regret the incident that occurred at our establishment. We value all of our customers and do not tolerate discrimination of any kind. We are committed to reviewing our policies and implementing necessary changes to ensure this does not happen again. We sincerely apologize to anyone who was hurt or offended." The post garnered mixed reactions. Some commenters expressed relief that the restaurant had taken accountability. "At least they're apologizing. Let's hope they follow through." But many others, including Barron, remained unconvinced. "This sounds more like damage control than genuine change. An apology means nothing without action. What policies are they reviewing? Be specific." Barron read the statement with a critical eye. While the words sounded polished, he couldn't shake the feeling that the apology was more about easing the public's outrage than addressing the core issue. The statement lacked specifics. No mention of how staff would be trained, what policies would be changed, or how they planned to rebuild trust. Rather than react immediately, Barron decided to wait and see if the restaurant would back their words with meaningful action. In his mind, a real apology wasn't just about acknowledging wrongdoing, it was about making things right. For now, the apology placated some of the public, but Barron knew there was more work to be done. He wasn't ready to let the issue fade into the background, especially when the family who had been wronged still hadn't received the justice they deserved. The public apology from the restaurant owner might have quieted some of the backlash, but Barron knew it wasn't enough. Words without action didn't solve the root problem. Determined to ensure genuine change, Barron came up with a plan to bring all parties together for an open, honest discussion. Barron reached out to the black family who had been discriminated against, explaining his intention to address the issue directly with the restaurant owner. At first, the father was hesitant, weary of yet another confrontation. But after Barron reassured him that the meeting's goal was to foster understanding and create a path forward, the family agreed to participate. Next, Barron contacted the restaurant owner, presenting the idea of a mediated conversation. Though initially defensive, the owner eventually agreed, spurred by the continued backlash and the opportunity to repair his business's reputation. To ensure the discussion had broader support, Barron also invited local community leaders, business owners, and a respected mediator to facilitate the dialogue. The meeting took place in a neutral community center, away from the diner's charged atmosphere. As the attendees gathered, there was an air of tension, particularly between the family and the restaurant owner. Barron began the meeting by setting a respectful tone. "This isn't about assigning blame or creating more division," he said. "It's about understanding how our actions affect others and finding ways to move forward together." The father of the black family was the first to speak. His voice was steady, but the pain in his words was evident. "What happened that day wasn't just embarrassing, it was humiliating. My kids didn't understand why we were treated that way, and how do I explain something like that? How do I tell them this is still the world we live in?" The mother added, "It's not the first time we've faced this, but it doesn't get easier. It's exhausting, and it makes you question your own worth." The room was silent as the couple spoke, their words cutting through any remaining defensiveness. Even the restaurant owner, who had initially tried to justify his actions, seemed visibly moved. Other attendees began to share their thoughts. A local business owner talked about how inclusivity had helped her restaurant thrive, attracting customers from all walks of life. A community leader emphasized the long-term harm of discriminatory practices, not just for the victims, but for the businesses and towns that perpetuate them. When it was the restaurant owner's turn to speak, his voice was quieter than before. "I didn't realize how much harm we were causing," he admitted, glancing at the family. "I thought it was just a policy to avoid trouble. but I see now that we were creating the trouble ourselves. Barron stepped in, his tone firm but encouraging. Policies rooted in bias don't just hurt the people they exclude. They hurt your business, your reputation, and your ability to grow. Customers want to feel respected and valued. By creating an inclusive environment, you're not just doing what's right. You're building trust and fostering loyalty. The owner nodded, clearly reflecting on the points made. I was wrong, he said, addressing the family directly. I can't undo what happened, but I promise to do better. I'll work with my staff to make real changes, not just to policies, but to our mindset. And I'd like to invite you back, as my guests, to show you that we're serious. The family accepted the apology cautiously, but their gratitude was evident. The meeting ended on a hopeful note, with a renewed sense of purpose among all involved. Following the meeting, the restaurant owner partnered with local diversity trainers to implement regular workshops for his staff. He also invited community leaders to hold him accountable, ensuring the changes were genuine and long-lasting. Barron, satisfied that progress was being made, stepped back but kept in touch with the family and the local community to ensure the momentum continued. Weeks later, Barron decided to revisit the small-town diner, this time without any disguise or pretense. The memory of what had transpired there still lingered, but he hoped the changes the owner had promised were being put into practice. As he approached the restaurant, the familiar smell of fresh coffee and sizzling food wafted through the air, but the atmosphere inside felt noticeably different. The once tense energy of the restaurant was replaced with a warm, welcoming buzz. Staff moved confidently between tables, smiling as they greeted diners of all backgrounds. There was no hesitation, no nervous glances, just the natural flow of a place that seemed to have found its footing. The manager, standing near the host stand, greeted every guest with respect, including Barron. Recognizing him immediately, the manager approached with a nervous but genuine smile. "Mr. Trump," the manager said, extending a hand. "Thank you for coming back. I was hoping you would." Barron shook the manager's hand, noticing the difference in his tone and demeanor. "I wanted to see how things were going," Barron said, scanning the room. "It looks like things have changed for the better." The manager nodded, his expression earnest. "It wasn't easy at first," he admitted. "But that meeting made me see things differently. Hearing their stories, it hit me in a way I didn't expect. We've been working hard to make sure this place is welcoming to everyone." As Barron looked around, his gaze landed on a familiar face. The black family he had met weeks ago was seated near the window, the same table Barron had occupied during his first visit. The children were laughing over their meals, and their parents seemed relaxed, the tension from before nowhere in sight. The father noticed Barron and gave him a wave and a warm smile. Barron waved back, a sense of satisfaction washing over him. He approached the family briefly, exchanging a few words. The father thanked him again, his gratitude clear. "What you did, it made a difference," he said. "Not just for us, but for everyone who comes here." Before leaving, Barron spoke with the manager once more. "This isn't just about fixing a mistake," Barron said. "It's about creating a culture where everyone feels valued. It looks like you're on the right track." The manager nodded thoughtfully. "We've still got work to do, but I'm committed to it. You helped me see what I was missing, and I'll always be grateful for that." Barron left the diner with a sense of fulfillment, knowing his efforts had sparked real, lasting change. As he walked away, he reflected on how even small actions, if driven by empathy and persistence, can ripple out to create a better world. The sun had dipped below the horizon as Barron stepped out of the restaurant, the warm glow of the diner's lights spilling onto the sidewalk. The familiar hum of conversation and clinking silverware followed him as he paused, turning back for one last look. Inside, the atmosphere was lively, filled with the sounds of laughter and shared meals. Through the window, Barron could see a diverse group of patrons seated at various tables, families, friends, couples, all enjoying their meals without the tension or exclusion he had witnessed weeks earlier. It was a simple scene, but one that spoke volumes about the changes that had taken place. His gaze lingered on the black family he had met during his first visit. They sat together near the window, the children laughing over plates of food, their parents smiling as they chatted. The father caught Barron's eye and gave him a small wave of gratitude. Barron waved back, feeling a quiet sense of accomplishment. As he turned and began walking down the street, Barron reflected on the journey that had brought him here. It had started with a single moment of injustice, one family being turned away, but had become something so much more. He thought about the conversations, the meeting, and the hard but necessary work of making others see what they hadn't before. Change didn't always come easily, but it was possible, Barron realized, when paired with persistence and a willingness to educate. Sometimes, it took just one action to start a ripple that could reach farther than anyone expected. Passing another group of patrons heading into the diner, he heard their laughter as they walked inside. It was a sound he hadn't noticed before, but now it carried a new meaning. The diner, once a place of division, had become a place of unity, where everyone was welcome to share a meal. Barron smiled as he continued down the quiet street, the soft glow of the diner fading into the distance. What had started as an act of exclusion had become an opportunity for understanding, and for that he was deeply grateful. If this story moved you, remember that change starts with small actions. Together we can challenge injustice and create a world where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. Like this video to show your support for equality. Share it to inspire others to stand up for what's right. Subscribe for more stories that remind us all of the power of kindness, courage, and action. Let's work together to make every space a welcoming one.